Hey, good morning, everyone. So you go out to your car, you go to start it, battery's dead. Okay. You jump start it, get it going, everything seems fine. Really have no idea what a battery went did. Maybe you left something on, whatever. You drive it around, charge the battery, do whatever. You go have the battery tested, battery test fine. Okay. Let the car sit for 2 days, battery's dead again. What the heck's going on? Got some kind of a draw. Okay. How do you check for a draw? Well, let me show you real quick. On a previous video, I showed you that both of my multimeters, my Snap-on and my Fluke, broke. My Snap-on was quite old, and it all of a sudden just went wonky on me. And my Fluke meter, I had bought that in 1997, and that finally died on me. It's no longer serviced. It's no longer, they no longer do repairs on that one. So Fluke actually offered me a new version of my Fluke meter, and it's like a Fluke 88, I think it was, or an 87. I think it was an 88. And they offered me a new version of that one, and I'm waiting for that to show up. So what I did was I stopped at Harbor Freight, and I picked up their best multimeter, which is an inexpensive multimeter. You can get a multimeter for 30 bucks if you want to. I decided to go with the better one. It was 100 bucks. I actually bought the service plan, so it was 120 bucks. So let me show you what I got, and let me show you what you got to do. So here's the truck in question. It's a GMC Sierra that had the running issue. Now, the way the customer was talking about it, sometimes I wonder if possibly he had a battery issue. I don't think so, but I want to verify just to make sure. So here's the meter that I bought. These are the leads that come with it, and those are touch type leads. So what I did was I took my leads from my Snap-on scanner, because I still have the boxes in it, but I took the leads from it because it's got alligator clips, and I can hook those up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the battery, and then on here, you want to go to the amp scale. I don't want to go to milliamps, I want to go to amps. The reason being is because amps is 10 amp. Milliamps is not. You go to milliamps, I think it's a 1 amp. So if you have anything more than an amp, you're going to blow the fuse that's inside the meter. I don't want to do that. So then we're going to go to amps. Let me disconnect the negative side of the battery. You could either do negative or positive, but let me show you what you need to do. The other thing too is the key is out of the ignition, and I made sure all the accessories are off as if this thing was parked. So let me disconnect the battery and let me show you what you got to do. Hello, sorry about that. All right, so I'm hooked up here now, or at least I got the battery disconnected is what I should say. And what I did, because this is a side terminal, I took a 3/8 bolt and I stuck it inside the battery, so this way I had like a stud to grab a hold of. And also, I am an idiot. Remember I was telling you about the fuses? Well, let me show you something. Here's the meter. Here's the bolt, because I decided to hook this thing up before I showed you, just to make sure the meter worked. And what I did was, this is negative, so I hooked one lead up here, and then I went to positive, and I hooked up to the positive lead there. Guess what happened? I blew the fuse instantly inside the meter, because you're not supposed to go positive to negative. Yeah, okay. Luckily, I have fuses. I do have them. They're special fuses. So I took a fuse that I have for my Fluke meter, and I just installed that in the meter. But let me show you the fuse just so you know, because they're different style fuses. There's two different ones inside the meter, but this is the one that I popped because I'm an idiot. So, but anyway, let me show you here. Now we're going to take, like I said, I'm on amp scale. I'm going to hook the alligator clip right there. Then I'm going to go to ground, not power. And I'm going to go here. You're going to get some spark. You see that? Oops, hold on. You're going to see the sparks? Get some spark. You can actually hear it too. All right. So there we are. 0.538. That's a half an amp right now. But you got to wait. This is supposed to be preferably below 50. 0.050 is what it should, that's preferably. If it's 100 or less, I'm usually happy with that. Usually an average car that people drive on a daily basis, usually will never have an issue. See, now one module just went to sleep, so now we're down to 330. So we're waiting for modules to go to sleep. This could take 20 minutes. Could take a half hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this thing in a half hour, and I want to see where it's actually at. Like I said, I have the key out of the ignition. I rolled the window down too. The reason for that is because a lot of times, if this thing does have a draw on it, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start to turn stuff on and off, just mild things like if it's got like a visor light, you know, I might drop the visor and, you know, reach in and then open it up so the light comes on. So I want to see the change on the meter. I've seen stupid stuff. I've seen it to where, like visor lights, the plastic that shuts it off, because it's like a little push switch, the plastic that covers the mirror will actually distort and leave the light on and cause like a small amp draw. See, but now I'm down at 259, 258 on a meter. So I'm gonna let this go for a half hour, and then we're gonna come back to it and let's see what it reads. So it's been about 40 minutes now. So let's go outside and let's check what we got going on. All right, uh-oh, the meter went dead. No, it didn't, it went to sleep. But it's still connected, so it's still, the readings are valid. Turn it back on. All right, so 0.24. So that's a 1/4 amp draw. That's more than I would like. That would probably kill the battery in 1/4 amp, 3, 4, 5 days maybe. It wouldn't kill it overnight, but 3, 4, 5 days. Now, like I said before, what I would usually do is I would come inside and I would see about like the vanity mirrors and stuff like that if it had it. So I don't think this has it. No, it's not going to have it. I'm sure it doesn't have it on the other side. This is a pretty base model. It's got crank windows and everything else. But here's what I'm suspecting. See that? Aftermarket stereo. That was not in there when we sold this, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure this thing had a factory radio. So I am willing to bet that that's the problem. But now, one thing that I usually will do, I want to verify everything's doing what it's supposed to. Oh, darn it, I just disconnected it. My bad. Let me hook that back up. All right, so let me let that go back to the 1/4 amp. So let me let that go. Let me let the modules go back to sleep, and then we'll come back to this. All right, so we're back down to 258, which is fine. So what I will usually do, I always like to do something like turn the lights on or whatever, open the door. Let me open up the door. Let's see what the reading goes to. See that? So now the interior lights are on. So now a module came awake. So we know everything's working the way it's supposed to. So what's causing the draw? Well, in order to find out, usually you would have to start pulling fuses and stuff. But the customer did ask me to see if I can't straighten out the faceplate for that radio. If you noticed, it was missing. Well, it's on the seat. It came off. So I got to take this stuff apart anyway to look at the radio. I'd be willing to bet once I disconnect the radio, that draw is going to go away. So let me go ahead and do that. Let me get that apart, and we'll see if the draw is gone. Because if it is, we know where the problem is. Somebody wired it in wrong. So let's go that way and see what happens. So it's actually not the radio. So what's the next step? Well, on a truck like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the door. But as soon as you open up the door, it's going to trigger a module. See that? So on this, the pin switch is actually inside the latch. So I'm going to close the latch so it thinks the door is closed, but I'm going to leave the door open. Because what I need to do is once that gets back down, I'm going to start pulling a couple of fuses out of here just to see what I can come up with. See what is going to change and make that voltage come down, or that draw come down, I should say, not voltage, the amp come down. But yeah, so let's let this sit for a couple minutes. I'm in the middle of something inside anyway, so just let this sit for a couple minutes. Oh, there's the radio. Obviously, I have everything disconnected. So let's do that and come back to it. I moved the meter over to the windshield so I get a better view of it. So now what I'm going to do is one at a time. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start pulling fuses. And when you pull the fuse, just remember where you took it out of. Oops, I got the wire. And then you want to look at the meter, see if anything changes. Because if it changes, then that's the circuit you got to start to investigate. So let me start doing this and see if I can't figure something out. I pulled every fuse out from in here and nothing changed. So now I got to go to the under hood fuse box. This box is fed from the underhood fuse box. And normally the problem lies in the interior, but it could be something else. Could be something on the motor end or PCM end. So let's start underneath the hood. So now we're under the hood, and here's the underhood fuse box. And I started doing the same thing. I started pulling individual fuses. Then when I got to this one here, see See that? Let me back out of this a little bit so you can see it. So this fuse here, when I yank it, draw goes away. So what is that fuse? All right, well, if you look here on this nice little handy dandy chart, it's IPC DIC. So it's instrument panel cluster / DIC. I'm not exactly sure what the acronym DIC stands for. But anyway, so now what I have to do is I have to start looking at wiring diagrams to try to figure out what's fed on that circuit. If it's just the instrument cluster, then I'm going to disconnect the instrument cluster and see if that's it. But I want to look at a diagram first just to see what else is on that circuit. So let's go that route. Let me look at a diagram and see what we got. So when looking at diagrams, I looked at a couple different ones just to make sure. The only thing I could see is that fuse only feeds the instrument cluster. So right now I have the instrument cluster not disconnected, but it's out of its pod, but it's still connected. I'm waiting for the meter to drop back down because I had to turn a key on to do something. So once the meter goes back down to 250, 240, 230, whatever it was, something in that range, then I'm going to disconnect the cluster. So there, I think you can see that, right? Yeah, it's at 500 right now. So let me let this calm down, and then I'm going to unplug the cluster. You can see the connectors right there. So let's wait for that. And there it is, it dropped. So let's disconnect the cluster. I may need two hands to do this. Let me pause this. So there we go. And the draw is gone. So it looks like the problem's in the cluster. So we're gonna have to send the cluster out. But like I said, that 250, may probably take, depending on the battery, I think the battery is brand new. There's actually a calculation where you figure out cold cranking amps, and I forgot how it works. I'd have to look it up, but there's a calculation to figure out what the maximum milliamp draw should be. And believe it or not, on most cars, it should be like around 30 or 40, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen some as low as like 15. But anytime I've ever seen a number under 100, it's fine. You know, basically a tenth of an amp. But this is at 2.5 or 0.25 of an amp. So that's a bit much. I mean, if it was my own car, I'd probably leave it alone because I drive my car every single day and I would never notice an issue with it. But if this thing sat for a week, it'd probably have a dead battery. So yeah, we're gonna probably have to send the cluster out and get it repaired, or see if we can't get an exchange cluster or whatever. But I'm gonna leave it up to the customer, see what they want to do. I know what the problem is. Now it just depends on what they want to do. So, all right, I just wanted to show you that. That's how you check parasitic draw. Yeah, so anyway, if you're getting something out of my videos, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.